Closely observe the posture and expression of the model. Exact observation of body language helps in bringing out perfect sketch in a few spontaneous lines. It is very important for a beginner or an artist to do regular sketching. Start from the head of the model and just make a few dark impressions of hair, eyes, and shadows leading to neck and shoulders. Curved line, facet lines, angular lines, all are catching the structure of the model and the folds of the clothes he has worn. There is no detailing, yet one can make out from the pose that it is a reflection of the model sitting in front. With one hand on right thigh and the other one on the stool. Thighs joined together and feet apart. Like Chuck Jones aptly said, the whole essence of good drawing and of good thinking, perhaps, is to work a subject down to the simplest form possible and still have it believable for what it is meant to be. Now is the time to block the massive areas with darkness to imply shadows. Shadow portions like neck and fold of clothes are totally massive and one is supposed to fill them in single tone. The dimension of the arm, side of the thigh, turns of the knee all need massive shaded blocks. These impressions only will help in bringing out apt expression of the sketch. Now apply darkest strokes over the hair, eyes and curves of the nostril to finish the instant sketch. Start second sketch in the same way, starting from the head, not lifting the hand, and continuously twisting the line. Add to the experimental and daring fervor. Sketching means practice. Practice means variation of model, variation of angles, variation of characters, variation of color scheme, and variation of gestures. All the possibilities are variation in sketching. Different poses like sitting, standing, carrying something, or even traveling. The present pose is bending slightly forward due to some weight of bag on his back. The flowing, unhindered lines bring out the beauty of the sketch. One hand in the pocket is showing another twist in the pose. Paul Klee said, in the final analysis, a drawing as simple is no longer a drawing, no matter how self sufficient its execution may be. It is a symbol, and the more profoundly the imaginary lines of projection meet higher dimensions, the better. Third sketch is with a piece of black pastel. It is another way to explore the textural quality of a sketch. By keeping the pastel in the flat way, automatically massive block can be created. At some places, one can draw fine and sharp lines, and on the other, totally bold and flat ones. That's the magic of sketching, where just by a few twists and turns of the hand, one can give birth to hidden structures of the model. Clothing, pose, expression of face, and even the shadows. One line can connect so many detached parts in a unified composition. The spontaneity appeals to the eye, despite being devoid of any details in the sketch. Sketching is a beauty of minimalism, flow of lines as well as abstraction. And this understanding comes only with regular practice. Vic Muniz said, drawing is not only a way to come up with pictures, drawing is a way to educate your eye to understand visual information, organizing it into a moral hierarchical way, a more economical way. When you see something, if you draw often and frequently, you examine a room very differently. After capturing the basic pose and structure in play of few lines, the final touches can be given by darkening areas around the hair, eyebrows, mustache, and certain strokes to create a contrast over the folds of clothes. And where the clothes are twisting to fit the body and its curves. This sketch is of a man sitting supporting his body weight on one hand and the other arm over his knee. It is a side pose. The face has to be made in profile. In sketching, no detailing of features is required. That's why one can scribble over the face and just leave an impression of eyes and nose. The play and liberty online and movement thrills the spirits. With a single stroke, one can create the angle of the shoulder, angle of the arm, twists and turns of the folds of drapery. Sketching becomes a carefree game of spirits, making the hand move in a rhythmic manner. Two lines can imply fingers of the hand, and a little darkness can show the pressure. One doesn't need to be very intricate with the element. What matters is the essence and the basic move caught in a flowing line. Like Jeff Koons says, if I try to articulate every little detail in drawing, it would be like missing the forest or for the tree. So it's just about getting the outline of the forest. The more playful the sketch will look, the darkness of lines reflect the light and shade, and the massive blocking of pants create a contrast between whiteness of shirt and darkness of pants. A few more scribbles of grey bring a middle tone. The bold strokes on the hair, nose, chin tells the story of the darkest tone brought out from the scribbles. More dark lines overlapping the folds and outlines can create a dramatic effect. The sketch becomes more forceful and bold the impressive. Now is the turn to experiment in watercolor and see how by minimum strokes and color variations an impression of human form or model can be created. David Hockney beautifully explained the drawing process in his words. Drawing is like rather playing chess. Your mind races ahead of the moves that you eventually make. A spectator cannot make out at an initial stage what an artist is creating. Once the form gets clear, then only the impression comes out. To some, these watercolors strokes might seem to be patches of blues and browns, but only an artist knows where his imagination is leading him. A few tonal variations can differentiate between the brown of skin, coat, or chair. Till now, one can just see bold strokes and their tones placed side by side, creating the impression of folds. Yet one can make out the basic structure and pose of the model. His one hand on the knee, one leg and one arm folded. Once the base is set, minor shapes can be brought out by some liner strokes. One can draw the stiff lines for the collar of the coat and flowing ones for the fall of the folds of the coat. After the curved lines of the arm, draw or give a shape to the chair and drapery covering it. One bold stroke over the brown of the foot makes the shape of the slipper, and more bolder ones show the shoe laying next to the chair. Brown next to the sleeves reflects the head, and darker tones reflect the facial feature. It is these dark tone or tonal variations only which create an interest in otherwise flat strokes applied over the surface. Clyde Spivak very appropriately hinted on the creative process where one doesn't need to show everything perfectly but read between the lines. You are creating interest in foundation by creating those knowledge gaps like in novel, like in a novel, but not in a totally obvious way or it can get boring or trite. The sketch has started with the play of two tones of brown and crimson. The model is standing with one arm stretched high on the wall, second hand on the vest, and slightly angled legs supporting the pose. It is a very interesting pose as the model is in profile with the back towards the artist. Apply the dark brown on arm and face, while a little lighter tone for the pants. Crimson covers the area of the shirt. Till now, it is just the indication color prevailing over the structure. After the basic color application is the time to apply darker tones for creating depths in the folds and also for defining some shape to the basic form. The little white gap in the angle of the arm is beautifully reflecting the placement of the hand over the vest, despite being devoid of any detail. One needs to observe how the angles are changing with the placement of arms and legs in different poses. This variation only entrances the artist and triggers his spirits to the experiment. Apply darker tone for the hair on the head, as the artist can just see the back of the model. That's why only partial face is visible. One can now easily make out the pose being drawn. The vision has started traveling into the sketch rather than just being placed over the basic structure. Just like Fernando Botero says, when you start a painting, it is somewhat outside you. At the conclusion, you seem to move inside the painting. Bring the drawing to an end by applying a few light blue tones reflecting the shadow of the model on the background. The last drawing is of a still life including a dais stand, a chair and a bag placed over it with its string hanging. Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, "The world of imagination is boundless." The more playful one is, the more it stimulates the imagination. Simplifying the forms by only the few strokes bring excitement, wonder and pleasure in the process of creation. One feels like exploring all the possibilities. It is like being a child and not getting into complication of the technicalities. Just put the base colors of the object. The things will find their own way of the visibility. The empty spaces of white in the shape of the black bag reflect the beauty of watercolor. One can get the three-dimensional character of the bag. Draw the legs of the chair and define its shape. Dark dots on the legs can tell the depth of the base and add roundness to the legs. Define the shape of the standing tires. The angular sides reflect the slant of the tabletop, and multiple lines on the cross of the tires on flooring show multiple angles of the foot design. Bring the drawing to an end by drawing vertical linear lines of the drapery in background. Add a tone of blue for standing and slowly spread it across the floor too.